All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at exactly how Talking Heads took a standard live concert and turned it into an absolute cinematic masterpiece. Back in 1984, the world was introduced to a concert film unlike anything that had ever been seen before. It wasn't just some raw recording of a band playing songs. It was this meticulously crafted theatrical journey. Today we're going to break down the anatomy of Stop Making Sense and uncover the sheer genius behind its staging, its cinematography, and its massive legacy.
So what actually makes a concert film a masterpiece, right? Is it the music, the lighting, the screaming crowd? Well, what's really fascinating here is that to answer this, we literally have to start with a totally blank slate, just like the film itself does. Most concert films, they just hit you over the head, right? Flashing lights, roaring fans, a total wall of sound from second one. But not this one. This project dared to ask, what if a concert was paced more like an actual narrative movie, slowly drawing you into its world?
The legendary New Yorker film critic Pauline Kael hit the nail on the head right out of the gate. She called the film an austere orgy. I mean, it sounds like a total oxymoron, doesn't it? But it is absolutely perfect. It captures that strict, minimalist discipline of the visual design right alongside the contagious, joyful release of the music itself. It's literally a structured celebration.
So, moving into our first section, the art school punks and how they completely redefined the New York scene.
Now, to really get this film, we've got to understand the minds behind it back when they were coming up at the legendary venue CBGB. The crucial takeaway here? Talking Heads were this highly intellectual band that completely shattered typical punk stereotypes. On one hand, you've got your standard late 70s punk ethos, leather jackets, raw aggression, political rebellion. But then, you have Talking Heads. Three of the core members, David Byrne, Chris France, and Tina Weymouth, were actually educated at the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design, and Jerry Harrison went to Harvard. They're stepping onto the stage in preppy Lacoste tennis shirts. They weren't rebelling against society, they were rebelling against musical and artistic conventions themselves.
And you know, their early music just overflowed with that intellect. They were crafting these cynical, incredibly intricate compositions, instead of just playing as fast and loud as possible. Take one of their signature early tracks, Psycho Killer. To capture the killing vibe of a dual-personality murderer, they didn't just scream into a mic. No, they wrote this highly structured, cynical track that actually weaves English and French lyrics together. It was smart, it was completely different, and it laid the absolute groundwork for everything that was to come.
Which brings us to Section 2, Building the Empty Stage and its brilliant cinematic progression.
So looking at their conceptual 1983 tour, frontman David Byrne had this wild, rule-breaking idea for the staging. Instead of giving you that immediate explosion of sound, the show literally builds itself right in front of your eyes, character by character, instrument by instrument. Step 1, it starts with just David Byrne, wandering onto a totally bare stage with nothing but an acoustic guitar and a cassette boombox. Step 2, the original trio joins him, one by one, song by song. And finally, Step 3, the expanded band, with these powerhouse backing vocalists and an insane rhythm section, rolls out on risers. The whole show expands musically and visually at the exact same time.
And capturing this evolving stage wasn't some quick job. It took exactly 3 days of intense, real-world filming at the historic Hollywood Pantages Theater. They specifically booked the Pantages because of its massive size and cultural beauty, dedicating 3 whole nights in December 1983 strictly to filming. They absolutely needed that kind of time to pull off a very meticulous vision.
Where did the idea come from? Well, Byrne drew incredibly heavy inspiration from traditional Japanese theater. We're talking kabuki, no, and bunraku. He'd visited Japan and noticed that in those art forms, the stagehands are completely visible. They dress in black and literally change the sets right in front of the audience. Byrne took that and applied it directly to this concert. You're watching the roadies build the set, push the drum kits around, run the cables. The actual mechanics of putting on a performance become the performance itself. It's just brilliant.
All right, Section 3, Crafting the Visual Narrative. Let's talk about the incredible synergy between Jonathan Demme and Jordan Cronenweth.
Because to capture this kind of live, evolving art, they needed absolute visionaries. For the cinephiles out there checking out these technical specs, you'll see they treated this exactly like a high-end narrative feature. It was spearheaded by none other than Jordan Cronenweth, the legendary director of photography who shot Blade Runner, and directed by Jonathan Demme, who'd later win an Oscar for The Silence of the Lambs. They shot this on rich 35mm film using Panavision Panaflex cameras. They definitely weren't just slapping together a documentary, they were crafting a true movie. And in doing so, they completely threw out the rule book for concert films. Think about normal concert movies for a second. You've got flat lighting, chaotic multi-camera cuts, and endless reactive shots of screaming fans to artificially inject energy, right? Demme and Cronenweth did the exact opposite. They went with this dramatic, high-contrast chiaroscuro lighting, almost like a film noir. And the biggest rule they broke, they made a pact to basically never show the audience until the very end of the film. You are intimately locked onto that stage with zero distractions.
You really see this commitment shine during Once in a Lifetime, where they use these gorgeous, extended medium shots to just let the choreography breathe. They were actually looking at old classic musicals, stuff with Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, where the camera just holds steady so you can actually appreciate the dancing. Instead of that chaotic MTV-style rapid editing, Demme just held his shots. He let you sit there and watch Byrne's eccentric, mesmerizing, twitchy movements unfold totally naturally. Moving right into Section 4, shadows, lenses, and light, and how they mastered the art of illumination. Okay, let's dive into how lighting literally became a narrative character here. The visual storytelling is just so sophisticated. Every single song had its own unique lighting design. They started the show with what Byrne called gymnasium light, just this stark, raw, Gare bulb exposure that really emphasized how isolated he was. But as the set goes on, things get wild. During What a Day That Was, they use this extreme upward lighting from the floor. It casts these intense existential shadows that transform Byrne's face into this haunting, almost horror movie-style mask. And the sheer logistical precision behind this? Insane. Normally, if you've got cameras on both sides of a live stage, the lighting on one side is going to look totally flat and awful. So, Cronenweth came up with a genius workaround. Night 1, they lit everything perfectly for the cameras on the left side of the stage. Night 2, they completely reversed all the lighting for the cameras on the right side. So when you edit it all together, the dolly tracking looks flawlessly beautiful from literally every single angle.
On top of all that technical brilliance, Demme was just so good at nurturing the band's energy. Most directors would yell at a musician to ignore the cameras, right? But Demme embraced it. When percussionist Steve Scale started playing directly into the lens, Demme famously told him, "You have a marriage with the camera. You just keep doing what you're doing." And man, it worked. It built this undeniable, contagious joy that just pulls you right through the screen.
Which brings us to our final section, the big suit and legacy. This is where it all culminates in absolute joy.
Remember that Japanese theater inspiration we talked about a minute ago? Well, that specific cultural touchpoint is actually the secret behind the film's most iconic and, frankly, hilarious image. In classical Noh theater, performers wear these heavily structured, super rectangular, broad-shouldered costumes. Byrne basically asked himself, okay, what would that look like if it were a Western business suit? And boom, the legendary, wiggling, oversized big suit was born.
So here we are at the absolute climax of the explainer, and the theatricality is just maxed out. That bare stage from the beginning has transformed into this massive, funky celebration. It is a complete sensory overload of joy. You've got Byrne doing this ecstatic, Fred Astaire-inspired dance with a literal floor lamp. The backup singers are running frantic marathons around the stage. The big suit is jiggling everywhere. And then finally, Demme turns the cameras around to show the audience for the very first time. They are completely out of their seats, losing their minds, just totally surrender to the groove.
The impact of this was massive and deeply global. To put it in perspective, this film generated an astonishing 100 million yen in the 1980s from late-night Japanese screenings alone. It wasn't just an American hit. It became this massive worldwide cult classic. People treated it like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, showing up at midnight just to dance in the aisles of the movie theater.
And decades later, it hasn't aged a single day. When the independent studio A24 discovered the original negatives, they did a massive 4K IMAX restoration. The image, the sound, completely flawless. But the coolest part? This re-release was so monumental, it actually brought the original members of Talking Heads back together in the same room for the first time in over 20 years. Talk about a testament to the unifying power of what they built on that stage.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. If true art requires us to lose our isolated identity and surrender to collective joy, what boundaries are you willing to push to stop making sense? David Byrne started this film completely alone, anxious and isolated, but through this meticulously structured build-up, he and all of us watching are invited to just let go and experience the joy of the art. Think about where you can apply that fearless creativity in your own life. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer.